Hola a todos y bienvenido to another exciting session of Circulo Castellano. You are tuning in to Voces en Vivo episode 8. I'm your host Akriti and today we are unpacking a topic that so many of you have asked for, the academic pathway, degrees, diplomas and distance learning. Our guest today is a literal linguistic powerhouse, Mr. Mayank Vashist. He is a PhD candidate and senior research fellow at JNU. He speaks an incredible list of 8 languages and have studied in Mexico on a prestigious government scholarship and have even served as an interpreter for a presidential delegation. Mayank, muchas gracias for joining us. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I would just like dive right into the questionnaire and start by looking at your experiences. Honestly, when I was going through that, it reads completely like an UN roster. You speak Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi, English, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and Indonesian. Like when I'm speaking, it's like a mouthful, and you know all of them. So how do you keep all those vocabularies from fighting each other in your head? Like do you ever accidentally, dream in a chaotic mix of all the 8 languages?
Well, thank you for using that UN roaster word. I really appreciate that. So, yeah, learning different languages actually bring you closer to different cultures itself. So, if you ask me, how do I keep these vocabularies fighting from each other in my head? Then that goes to the very origin of how I learned or what was the process of learning these languages, right? So, for example, for Spanish, Portuguese, or even Indonesian, during my graduation days, I used to watch YouTube videos, right? So all these vocabularies that let's say basic vocabularies especially, they were context specific, right? So for example, if I let's say I have watched a Mexican, let's say YouTuber, or let's say a Mexican movie, and they're using a Mexican slang, like let's say there is something called there is a slang, chale, right, in Mexican Spanish. So I remember from the context itself how to use it and how, what are the contexts that I can use it in future. Similarly, if I watched, let's say, some Indonesian show or an Indonesian series, I would know like what is the context of using, let's say, an expression called wala, right? So for sure, there are these vocabularies, like there are a lot of them, but I have to manage them, and the context in which I have learned them is the key over here, right? So context matters in this
Yeah.
situation.
Honestly, that is also a very great advice for people who might be learning a lot of languages at same time to think about the context and remember the word from there. Now, as you were also, talking about your graduation life, you have simultaneously done 2 graduation degrees, one in English through which is through distance learning and one in Spanish at JNU. So, picturing the student right now trying to juggle a full time university workload with a distance learning degree, it seems so hard and so far fetched. So, what was your ultimate survival strategy to keep from burning out at that time?
Um, Good question. So keep this in mind that I was in a distance education program. So that would mean that I have a lot of time at my disposal according to my own, commitments. So I was like sort of in a 9 to 1, timing with Spanish language, and then the rest of the time I could have used for the B honors English from distance learning. But the thing is that I did not feel that workload or work pressure in such situations because uh, both of these degrees, I mean, both of these, both of these, bachelors had, subjects or subject matter which complemented each other, right? For example, we have Spanish literature and we have English literature as well. They both comprise what we call European literature or Western European literature, right? So, for example, Renaissance. So, Renaissance, if I, read that in the context of English literature and read that in the context of Spanish literature, the basic traits might remain the same, right? So they actually, complemented each other rather than being the workload. So I did enjoy that. So anyone who, tries to complement their, what do you say, the actual, or the core studies, then I think it's really good to, look other avenues, right? Even we have seen that in the new education policy, right? That people can actually, learn from different streams. So that is the basic thing, that we should amplify our knowledge to complement or supplement the core knowledge that we are aiming through.
That is actually very true. But honestly, I do believe that, even for complementing two subjects and making sure that they both are running parallelly well with each other, it requires a lot of discipline and time management at the person's end. And not everybody is able to do that for whatever reason that may be. So if you have been able to do that, you definitely have the smarts and the proper discipline for it. So we are very lucky to have you here and have the audience, get to know about what went behind your awesome brain. And yeah, now moving on to the next question, I would, love to play a scenario where, talking about all the language certifications that you have done. What if language students come to you with very little free time but wants to build an unbeatable academic profile, and you have a lot of experience with languages, even psychology? So, if they can only pick one non traditional out of the box diploma to complement their core language studies, what field would you recommend them, and why will be that?
Right, good question. So, see, there are a lot of traditional, diplomas as well, and non-traditional as well. So let's take this, like as you asked in the question, let's take this in the context of a language student, right? So a language student learns uh, how to say something in other language, right? Or what to say in what way, right? Through different tools, let's say grammatical tools or constructions, right? Um, I would suggest, because psychology plays a bit of part in my thesis, like psychoanalysis. So I would say maybe we should go for psychology. This is so because in a language you learn how to say something, right? But in psychology, you learn why that XYZ person says something or says that, right? So again, you would see that these two things again may complement each other, right? So if student comes to me, I would just suggest this: key, perhaps you can look for other avenues in psychology, and you would learn how the individual psychology or group psychology works when it comes to the language learning, right? So I would definitely suggest psychology to that
Yeah.
student.
That is actually a very great advice. And yeah, if a person who is looking for another degree to complement besides their traditional degree, then you can go with Mank's advice, and you can like pursue psychology via distance learning or whatever suits your arena of studies. Now, I would like to, go deeper with your Mexican experience, because it is so very rare that people do get that kind of experience. And you won the Mexican government's excellence scholarship in 2019, and where you went to Mexico and you like actually ended up teaching Indian culture to locals there. So, what
Mhm.
was the funniest misconception your Mexican students had about India? And how were you able to navigate that, explaining our cultural nuances to them in Spanish?
I have come across a few misconceptions, but I remember, one or two very clearly, right? Uh, One misconception was that because they have, consumed Indian culture through Bollywood as well, right?
Yeah.
So they think that Indians, dance every day and every time and everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's a common misconception that we dance, behind a lot of, drums and dolls, and then we have sort of very colorful culture, which we do have for sure. But apart from that, I always have to explain them that Bollywood is just one part of it. Apart from Bollywood, we have other film industries as well, which is very diverse, right? And we have, we like many people may dance, but I can't dance. And this was sort of misconception that they had. Another misconception is that, which you even find in other countries about Indians, is that we eat curry all the time. Um,
Yeah.
it's true, but we do have, diverse curries, right? It's not just
Yeah.
one curry, but we do have diversified curries, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not only about curry, it's also about biryani, which is there, right? And then every part of India has its own, different cuisine, which is, very unique in its own. So certainly these were few misconceptions, these two misconceptions that I can remember right now. But there were, many of them.
That was actually very fun to know. But yeah, that's so true. I mean, I won't even blame anyone, but it is true that Bollywood has made up certain expectations and certain perceptions of what, a perfect life or a perfect family or a perfect Indian the society is like. But it is far, far diverse and far, far different from that expectations. And also about the food, they do like the foreigners do like put all the different curries of India into one category, but yeah, it is different, so won't
Yeah.
blame them,
So
but
so
very
these
fun to know.
these
Yeah.
foreigners always consume only one type of curry, and they expect the Indians to have only the same thing
Yeah.
in their daily meal. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So
Exactly.
apart from this misconception of like the Indian society and the Mexican society, so what was the misconception that you held when you were going to Mexico? Was it like that eat chilies always, or something like that, or eating tacos only?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I had this misconception that Mexico is one just monolithic country with just one sort of culture, like tacos and quesadillas and all those things. But I found that Mexico is very diverse. Like you have different cultural zones. You have Central Mexico, you have North Mexico, and then you have Southern Mexico, which is completely different. And they have even a different accent, like completely different, which is pretty much similar to Central American accent. And I found it very, interesting, and like I was shocked to see that they were more similar to people around like Guatemala or let's say Honduras. I was there in, Yucatan as well, that Yucatan Peninsula. I toured that place, and people over there were speaking in a different accent altogether, which was not that stereotypical Mexican accent that we hear in YouTube or, movies, etc. So yeah, for sure that I had this misconception, and these misconceptions, when we travel, these misconceptions about different cultures, they get easily broken. So I think
Mhm.
traveling gives us freedom from those
Completely,
misconceptions and all.
completely agreeing with you, and that is something which I have experienced as well, meeting here the natives, and yeah. One more I have, like, I don't have a doubt, but it is in a form of doubt which I want to share it with you. So, do you
Mhm.
think burrito is Mexican food?
Well, that's a very complicated question. Um, See, I would say that it's a Tex-Mex food.
Hmm.
Just to stay a bit diplomatic. It's for sure it has Mexican influence, but then of course then it was come up in a different cultural context, perhaps I can say. So for sure.
Indeed, apart from saying it is very complicated, I would say it's very controversial question to answer.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, you just made me say that controversial thing.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
Saurabh.
let's
So
move.
let's
Continue.
stop asking controversial questions with my guest, and yeah, let's move on to fun scenario questions now. Yeah,
Sure.
talking about scenario questions. Mind picture you. It's 2020, and you are called in to be a volunteer interpreter for the Brazil's president's delegation here in India. So, what is going through your mind in that room? How do you handle the sheer adrenaline and like pressure of translating diplomatic conversations in real time without freezing up or without offending someone?
Um, Good question. The thing is that I was a student volunteer, right?
Yeah.
So that basically means that I'm allowed to make mistakes because I'm not
Yeah.
being paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was not exactly in the room as such, but I was with the Brazilian delegates. I volunteered as a language student, remember that, to help,
Yeah.
Brazilian delegates to, accompany them to establish a sort of, a casual contact with the Indian staff around, right? And that was pretty much it. I think it was not that much of, sort of, involvement, I would say. It was just a simple casual conversations that existed that I helped them through, right? So, for example, the hotel staff, if they went out, like just to buy, some, let's say, anything, right? So we just had to accompany those, few delegates. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
but even
So,
like, yeah, yeah,
hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it was a sort of adrenal hit
Mhm.
on the first day because you see that if as a student, like you are learning.
Mhm.
So when you are learning, it's just very difficult to, keep your mind calm and say that relax, everything will be fine. But then when the time passes, you learn from them as well. The whole journey is about learning. That's it. So it was only this that this adrenaline hit did help me to learn these things. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, that is very true, and yeah, I believe that might like even if you were just a volunteer, I believe that is also a very hectic task to like deliver in the end, and like just showing up there and connecting with people who were there from Brazil and like ensuring that the connection was meant and it goes well and nobody is not like having any problems as such. That is also a very vital duty, and I believe that being able to do that is a very experienced and a very awesome thing to do. And yeah, talking about your volunteering journey, you have also volunteered, I think, at the New Delhi World Book Fair, representing India as a young delegate. So, and here also you were a student volunteer for the language, language course, as a language expert. So, how important is it that showing up to these events, and like how does it add to the career that you are pursuing or the education that you are pursuing in a classroom, the volunteering and the events outside the classroom? How important both of these are and how are they intersecting when you are launching a career in global languages?
Right. So I volunteered, in the young delegates when I was in Yucatan in Mexico, and I represented India over there, like as a student delegate. While I also have been into the book fairs, which were there in Delhi. Like they were two completely different experiences. Um, and I would say that volunteering in such events would make you come into the contact with people who actually speak that language, right? You experience that sort of the actual usage of the language, the actual practice of that language. So this language, which is pretty much which is pretty like completely different from what we learn in the books, right? Like you would see that the language in the book, let's say Hindi, is pretty much different from what we speak in on a street or on a day-to-day basis or between our friends. So that language that they speak, those let's say while you are a volunteer, you would hear those people who are talking in a living language rather than in a bookish language, right? That's a completely different thing. So transitioning from that book language to practice language is what is important in these type of volunteering works, right? You are not just sort of helping for a good cause, but you are also helping yourself in consuming that living culture of those people, of those target languages that you are learning. So for sure, these were quite different from the language classes that I had, which remained more of a let's say auditive work or writing work. But there, while you are talking to those volunteers, you are, those people you are volunteering, you have to, for example, if they have some, questions, they have something, right? You have to solve those questions. You have to, give a concrete answer to, which is pretty much different from what we learn in the language classrooms, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you learn in these volunteering, events while you are in contact with different people.
Yeah, that is actually very true. And yeah, it is very important to have that outside practical exposure with the theoretical knowledge that we have going on in any career, to be truly honest, not just learning languages. But yeah, it definitely helps a lot in the languages sector because when learning language, we usually like follow all the rules in the grammar. We read this. But when dealing with people of the native language of the country where they have that language as a native language, it's very different. They speak differently, and then you sort of like fall like silent, and you can't like process it as fast. So it is very important for that. Now moving on
Right.
to another of your and now moving on to another of your academic achievements. You have also cracked net with GRF on your very first try, which is absolutely holy grail of academics in India, to be truly honest. So if you had to give a cheat code or a mindset hack for someone for the exam next month, what would it be? And like, is it about studying harder or studying smarter? What would you say?
Okay, I think that's a question of every academic. Is it about studying harder or studying smarter? See, believe me, any person would actually say that it is a mixture of both, right? It is a mixture of both. You have to study harder, but you also have to study smarter. Um, but in any situation, like this is how I experienced it. In any situation, I might be wrong, but studying harder beats studying smarter thing. This is so because while you are studying harder to make your basics strong, I think that would beat in any situation like which you haven't seen, unprecedented situation. Let's say question pattern changes in net UGC, as you said, as you asked, right? So somebody who has studied smarter might be expecting that old pattern questions, right? And if the pattern of question changes, study smarter guy would be in a difficult situation. But a person who has studied harder would be, would be putting through, right? His brain and his, basics and all those things. So I'm
I'll
on the
take that
studying harder
advice.
thing.
I'll take that advice.
For sure. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And
Yes.
any cheat
Yeah.
code that I would that you would advise to the students who might be preparing for this same course, the same exam.
Uh, right. See, that's a very wrong word to use the cheat code. There's no cheat code. There's no cheat at all. There is only that study harder thing. That's it. That's the only way you
Mhm.
can go through.
Yeah.
Like there is a possibility if we find, some cheat codes, in the, let's say, to pass the semester exams, but there is no, sort of, you know, um, cheat code in learning, right? So that's what I would say. That go through it, like go through it very well, like whatever we are studying. That's it.
Yeah, that is actually very relatable, and thank you so much for that advice. I believe that that would be really helpful for students who might be preparing for the exam in the upcoming time. And yeah, I would like to shift to the practical versus the theoretical war that goes on between the language learning and how to actually navigate that via scenario. So imagine that a student who is learning perfect textbook Spanish or Portuguese in New Delhi, but suddenly gets dropped into the middle of a Mexico City or Brazil, and you have taken a course on both the languages. So, how would you advise that person to like adapt to those massive regional slangs and accent shifts without panicking?
Right. So I would just say that we are humans, right? We would regardless panic. But how to, pacify that panic situation is that maybe before, planning our travel, we may, listen to some local podcasts. Let's say if we are planning to visit Ciudad de Mexico, you can just sort of listen to the local podcasts, the type of language that they use, the type of street language, or let's say any specific vocabulary that they use. You should just go through them, even it applies to any language like Portuguese or even Italian or any other language. So again, any textbook learning of any language is sort of skeleton, right? Around that skeleton there is a flesh, right? And that flesh is the spoken language, the street language that we use. It is even applicable to our Hindi, right? Even the type of English I'm using right now, even that is applicable, right? We use different languages in a different context. That is the street language, right? So yeah, like and one more thing is that because we're students and we are always learning, right? So I think it should be it should be the mindset that I would ask the question whenever I have to. Like, just don't be afraid to ask a question. You can always say that. What does that mean? And believe me, like just as a Hindi speaker, I would be happy to answer this question. If somebody says, "Hey, how would you say this in Hindi?" Right? It is a fulfilling experience. If somebody foreigner who is learning Hindi and he's actually genuinely interested in that language and he tries to learn that street language if he's middle of Delhi roads, right? So yeah, I use this thing a lot. What does this mean? What does that mean in Mexico when I was there? So we have to accept this that we are not natives, and of course we will have to ask a lot of questions in order to learn. Anybody who asks a lot of questions, he learns a lot. That's a simple logic.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, very relatable and agreeing to that point. I do believe that even in our previous webinars, people did point out this that you have to be shameless when you are learning another language. You have to like ask and ask and ask. You cannot be shy of not speaking out or not saying whatever doubt you might have, because then it makes no sense, because then you won't be able to speak
True.
out very confidently, and you won't be able to learn the actual gist and the actual essence of that language. So that is actually very true, and thank you so much for that advice. Now, coming to your current recent PhD journey that you are doing, your PhD research is surrounded around and focuses heavily on the Spanish civil war, which is also the intergenerational memory and trauma. So, as someone who loves seeing how stories shape our reality, how does Spanish literature act as a time machine for this collective trauma, and what can those, historical texts teach us about healing today?
Okay, right. Um, because I'm still in the process of writing my thesis, so I may give a sort of generic answer into that. So the thing is that, see, literature of any language has memories, right? Cultural memories, right? So any literature which has cultural memories, for example, let's say Spanish Civil War memories, right? Spanish Civil War was essentially a war, right? And a war literature uh, looks at the aspects of, let's say, how to express the problems, right? That surround that specific time of difficult times, right? Um, because today we are already distant from from those events. So reading them, opens up that literature and also that period where that particular things were felt, right? So and I think it can like just to answer your question, but I think it can teach us like how we humans, survived through those difficult days in any, period of time throughout our history, how we survived, just through, sort of that sheer love, sheer care, and that sheer spirit of, being human, right? In those difficult times. That's why we are here, right?
Yeah, very true. Thank you so much for that awesome answer. And it has been such a lovely conversation and an insightful time conversing with you and talking about your journey and all the various advice that the upcoming students can look into it and take inspiration from you. Before I hand over the mic to Saurav for the rapid fire round, I have one final question, which is looking back at the Mayank of like 10 years before, when you first admitted for the certificate course in Spanish in 2015, what is the one thing you know now as a senior research fellow that you wish you could go back and tell him?
That's patience, patience, and of course resilience. Well, I would say to myself, if I go back, that things take time. That's fine. Spanish would take time, or any process would take time, right? It's not about rushing to, finish things up. Let's say learning. Learning is a process, lifelong process. It's not something which you can finish, right? So the only thing I would say to myself is just stay resilient and just give it a time and just stay into that process. That's it.
Yeah, I think that is actually a very perfect advice, to be truly honest. And I myself would honestly take it to my life journey also, because this is something that I believe we all struggle at, not just the academy students, but everybody in their life journey. Not staying patient. We all want all of the things at once, and when it does not happen, because obviously it does not happen all at once, we start panicking and uh, doing all of the bad or worse steps that we could even take. But yeah, we need to be patient more and look and give things time, because time heals everything. But yeah, moving on now. Thank you so much, Mayank. These stories were absolutely
Thank
incredible,
you.
and yeah, muchas gracias for your time and for such a real
Same
look
here.
at academia. Now I'm handing the virtual mic over to Saurav for the rapid fire round. Saurav.
Muchísimas gracias, Akriti.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
okay, so it's the time to practice my Spanish language. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
let's go.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, man, por estar aquí.
Muchas
Tus
gracias a ustedes.
palabras mm, me interesa mucho, mucho la historia de ti y la experiencia. Te admiro, por supuesto.
Muchas gracias. Yo admiro a ustedes, créanme. Yo admiro a
Muchas
ustedes mucho.
gracias. Bueno, directamente vamos a empezar la ronda Rapid Fire. Pues no deberías pensar mucho, solamente la palabra o la oración que venga a tu mente es la respuesta. Bueno, la primera pregunta. Investigación en los archivos de GNU, la Universidad Nehru, o investigación en el campus de México.
Una semana de investigación en Ciudad de México, por cierto. Porque siempre se puede experimentar algo nuevo, ¿no? Al ponerse en
Sí.
contacto con la gente.
Por supuesto, de acuerdo de ti. Bueno, la segunda, la palabra más difícil de traducir del hindi al español.
He, por ejemplo, वो ही किताब चाहिए. Quiero ese mismo libro. मैंने ये ही बोला. Dije justo eso. ¿Qué
Sí,
करें? ¿Qué se puede hacer? Entonces,
sí.
no tiene una traducción exacta.
Es todo sobre el contexto, ¿no?
Exactamente.
Bueno, seguimos con la otra. Un título de película pop o cualquier película para tu tesis de doctorado.
Ese infierno. Infierno. Sí, es
Infierno.
una película mexicana. Infierno.
Ajá, ok. Creo que he escuchado sobre esa película, pero no lo recuerdo. Bueno, por eso, la otra. Una habilidad
Bien.
de supervivencia cultural de la India.
Poder cocinar, sin duda. Si usted puede cocinar, es la habilidad
Ujú,
máxima que puede hacer, que puede tener.
ok, bueno, Akriti, you have the best ability in the world then. Well, I cannot cook. I'm so, feeling helpless now. Okay. Well,
Eso no hay problema. Usted puede aprender en cualquier momento, aprender a cocinar, y
ujú,
eso no es nada difícil. Solamente usted tiene
sí,
que ir a la cocina, ayudar a su madre, a su hermanita y ya.
sí. Bueno, y también tengo YouTube.
Bueno, exactamente.
Okay.
Ahí está.
De todos los
Bien.
idiomas de que hablas, ¿cuál es en realidad más romántico, más suave?
Español.
En español.
Sí, español.
De
Sí,
acuerdo.
exactamente. Un poquito persa también. No, bueno, estoy sesgado al español porque yo sé más el español que la lengua persa. Pero también
Ujú,
persa yo creo que es muy romántica, pero al menos español, eso es algo con que estoy más en contacto, entonces estoy más sesgado al español.
ujú, sí, sí, es difícil un poquito en unos momentos cuando yo escucho las canciones persas y las españolas.
Exactamente.
Bueno, ah, la mejor película española sobre la guerra civil.
La lengua de las mariposas.
Me encanta, me encanta.
Exactamente. Eso
Sí.
tiene todo lo que uno debe saber sobre la guerra mexicana,
Ujú,
la guerra civil de
sí,
España.
sí, de acuerdo de ti. Bueno, sí, sí, debería que perder todos los conocimientos de una lengua que hablas, de los ocho, bueno, para aprender una nueva. ¿Cuál dejarás?
Ah, ah, mm, Inglés. Porque yo puedo aprender inglés otra vez solamente hablando con otros amigos aquí están, alrededor. En India todos hablan inglés. Entonces, si yo pierdo inglés, puedo reaprenderlo. Pero otras lenguas, pues no puedo perder. Ahí está.
Bueno, esa es una respuesta que, que es tan diferente que estaba pensando. Bueno, 24 horas en México ahora mismo. ¿A dónde vas primero?
Voy a visitar UNAM otra vez. Y esas calles alrededores donde
Ujú.
pues, viví durante la mayoría del tiempo de mi estancia en México. Entonces, UNAM.
Bueno, pues creo que es una experiencia inolvidable, más cerca de tu corazón.
Exactamente.
Sí. Bueno, ¿qué idioma sigue en tu lista para aprender?
Ah, Alemán. Sin duda, sería alemán. Yo voy a contactarle a usted para aprender alemán, ya
Por
que usted ya
supuesto,
sabe alemán.
por supuesto. También Akriti tiene conocimientos más mejor que yo.
Bueno, entonces ya tengo dos profesores.
Bueno,
Bien.
ok. Una palabra de la jerga o una jerga mexicana que te encanta usar.
Bueno, hay muchas, pero como ya muchas personas van a verlo, entonces tengo que ponerlo más inocente. Entonces, la jerga o sea, la jerga mexicana más inocente que llega a mi mente es ándale, ándale.
Ándale, ándale. Bueno,
Ahí está.
a mí me encanta usar los dos. Luego,
Ajá,
luego,
¿cuáles son?
ahorita,
Sí,
ahorita.
esas dos también. Sí, esas dos también son muy mexicanas, sí, ¿verdad?
Sí, sí, sí. Seguimos ahorita.
Sí. Eso significa que nunca van a seguir. Ahorita es
Sí.
nunca.
Bueno,
Bien, vamos.
ok. Sí, sí compraste, bueno, no sé si has hecho esa cosa, pues la pregunta es, ¿el mejor libro que compraste en la feria del libro?
Shastra de Vishnugupta.
Ok.
Bueno, tiene muchas cosas, ¿no? Aparte de cómo financiar guerras, pues ya no existen guerras. También
Ujú.
habla sobre cómo ¿no? Manejar la vida diaria. Entonces,
Ok.
Shastra de Vishnugupta.
Interesante. Bueno. Ok. ¿Traducción o interpretación?
Interpretación. Sí,
Ah,
da más adrenalina. ¿Cómo se dice?
sí,
Adrenalina.
sí. Sí, de acuerdo de ti, porque como estudio la traducción, que es es en mi curso también ahora, pues
Ajá.
me da flojera.
Sí, ¿verdad?
Bueno, ok,
Ujú.
la última. Una palabra para describir tu trayectoria académica.
Resiliencia, como dije antes. Resiliencia y paciencia.
Silencio.
Sí.
Bueno, son las palabras más,
Mágicas.
¿cómo se dice? No tengo palabras, no tengo palabras. Am, ni en inglés, pero puedo sentirlo. Bueno,
Exactamente. Eso es lo que tenemos, ¿no? Tenemos que primero
sí.
sentirlo y luego
Ujú.
transmitirlo, si es posible, por las palabras.
Sí, por
Si
supuesto.
no, entonces aún así como somos seres humanos, pues podemos sentirnos así solamente viéndonos y ya.
Ujú.
Eso
Ok,
es lo que más
bueno,
importa.
muchísimas gracias por
Gracias a usted.
responderme. Ahora, um, back to Akriti. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Saurabh, and muchas gracias, Mayank, once again for sharing your insights and energy with us today. That was a very fun round and a very fun and insightful conversation with you all around the PhD journey and the academia and what people can, look forward to when pursuing the same career or pursuing even something similar to what you have been doing. And yeah, it has been an absolute privilege talking to you. And as I said, that you definitely have the smarts for it. So I believe that maybe after talking to you, some of the smarts I can also take inspiration from your all the advice that you just gave, and work hard, not focus on working smarter, and yeah, have some patience on the journey that is going through all our lives. And yeah, to our viewers, muchas gracias for tuning in. We hope you feel inspired to map out your own academic pathways. And yeah, nos vemos pronto. Buenas noches. Ciao.
Buenas
Ciao, ciao.
noches.
Thank you so
Chao,
much for
chao.
having me.
Ciao.
Thank you so
Ciao.
much. Thank you guys. Bye bye.